Yes, you did. I was out of the house, so it was not a good place for me to call you where I was. But you said to call you at any time today, so I left it for today. Well, thank you for calling me back. We can go ahead and discuss this now then. On April 1st, I have alert 1, around my neck, that necklace that you press the button and they talk to you on an intercom in your house and get the ambulance for you. I had gone to UMC on March 29th. I called the police that time and they took me with an ambulance. They took me to UMC. I had stroke-like symptoms. When I went to UMC, the doctor there, Dr. Clark, told me that he was limited as to what he could do because they don't really have what you need for stroke, to test for a stroke and stuff like that. He took my blood, and because I had gone there quickly enough that, I think you're supposed to do it fast so that you can get your blood taken right away, because there's certain enzymes that are in your blood when you're having
No. That's for a heart attack.
Oh, that's for a heart
attack. The stroke protocol. It's that they look to see if the CAT scan and certain things, and both are timed. You're absolutely correct. Both are timed. Enzymes are for heart.
Oh, okay.
For the stroke, it's the CAT scan to make sure there's no bleed. But both are very much. There's a window that they must fall in. So I just didn't want to.
Yeah, that I knew that had to do it fast. That I probably knew. And because I had earlier in the week another incident that I didn't act quickly on, where I couldn't swallow, but I wasn't sure that was necessarily a stroke symptom,
Sure.
But I did call a neurologist, and he told me that I should go to the hospital, and I did. And they took a CAT scan, and nothing came up, because if you're having a TIA, you're not going to have necessarily anything shown on MRI either. But if you had a stroke, it should show, apparently, from what I understand. Well, in any event, I had gone there on the 29th. It was in the wee hours. They took me there. He told me, he gave me a CAT scan, but he says, I can't give you an MRI because we just don't have them. We have them, you have to make an appointment, during the day and stuff like that. And in any event, he discharged me, said I had peripheral neuropathy, because what I had was paralysis in both my arms. It was momentary, it was very, very momentary and fleeting, but it happened. And I said to myself, that's something I think I need to act on that right away. I called the police. They brought me there. So I learned from that experience that if you have a stroke, or you think you're having one, or you have to do what you need to do to find out if you're having one, don't go to UMC.
Go to a stroke center.
Right, or I don't know of any, but
there are 3 in the city.
There are. What are they?
The designated stroke centers currently are Providence, Washington Hospital Center, and Sibley has applied for their license. Howard has applied for theirs. So there's going to be 5, and I'm missing one.
GW?
I'm trying to remember if they have their status yet.
Okay, because I'm looking.
One moment. What's the other? It's Providence Hospital Center. What's the other stroke center? It is GW. Okay, it's GW, and then Sibley and Howard have their applications in.
Okay, all right.
So it'll be 5.
It'll be 5. That's okay. So that was that for March 29th, okay? By the way, you're going to give me some complicated information because I'm going to ask you some complicated answers. This is why we wound up talking today. So I'm going to record what you're saying because I want to understand.
Not going to consent to being recorded.
Well, you can't. It's DC, and I don't even have to tell you I'm recording you.
And I'm not going to consent to being recorded.
I guess we can't have this conversation.
Correct. I would prefer then, why don't you put it in writing, or if it's about protocol, our protocols can be found. If you have a pen, I want to give you everything that you're probably looking for actually can be found online if you have access to internet.
I'll get access and I'll find it, unless you can mail it and print it and mail it to me.
The protocol book is about 400 pages, but it's www.dc.gov. dc.gov. And when you go under FEMS, FEMS.
What? I'm sorry. S as in Sam.
F as in Frank.
Oh, F as in Frank. EMS.
Which is fire and EMS. Yes, that's our FEMS is our.
Okay.
Is our abbreviation, and then you look for the EMS protocols.
Okay.
And that will give you the most recent, the 2012 protocol, which will include treatments, hospital destinations, explanation of general assessment and universal care. There are going to be revisions and updates, as I said, as things change in the city. Then we pull them down and then put in the newer. Now, there hasn't been any online revision since September 24th.
Okay. What is your email? You said to send it to you in writing. What is your email?
Anita.massengale, ANITA. Capital MASS, EN Nancy, GALE, at DC.gov.
Okay, ANITA dot I'm sorry, MASSENGALE at DC.gov.
Correct.
And your title is
Director of Clinical Quality Improvement.
Are you a doctor?
I'm a nurse attorney.
You're a nurse attorney.
And I work directly for the medical director. That is I am his second in line.
Okay. All right.
And that would be the Assistant Fire Chief, Dr. David Miramontes.
David, M-A?
Miramontes.
Okay. Okay, so he's the one who directs everything, and you are his second in line.
He's the Assistant Fire Chief over EMS, over the clinical aspects of the department, and then when it comes to clinical review, then it's me.
Okay. All right. I'm going to ask you a theoretical question. This is
sure.
In terms of official. I need to buy a property. This is something that happened that you wanted to make it official, so I would tell you about it. But I also wanted, theoretically, in terms of buying a property, which areas would go automatically to these GW, Providence, and Washington Hospital Center?
Unless it happened actually in their parking lot. None. And that I would have to lead you to DC Code. That's under, the council, under legislation on hospitals. Depends on what the issue is. Like I said, we have stroke centers. There are certain centers that are called STEMI centers, which handle certain type of cardiac emergencies. There are certain hospitals, and I don't want to call them centers, but certain hospitals that have a 24-hour ophthalmologist, so then they are considered eye trauma centers. There are certain hospitals that are considered major trauma centers. So it depends if it's a burn. If you got hit by lightning, and your heart stopped, but you weren't burned, we would take you to a trauma center. But if you were burned, you would have to go to the hospital center because you were trauma with a burn. And so there's so much in the decision tree that there is no oh, I live across the street from Georgetown, I'm going to go to Georgetown.
So what you're saying is
I live across the street from Georgetown, but I'm having a STEMI. I'm not going to Georgetown. I'm going to GW.
Okay. So in other words, what you're basically telling me, for the most part, the symptoms are how you decide where the person goes. Is the first consideration.
Symptoms are always
the first. Okay. So if I tell the ambulance that I am having stroke symptoms, he should not bring me to UMC. He should bring me to one of these.
Don't call and say, I am having stroke symptoms. As a professional, the diagnosis they take into, you're part of the partnership, true. But if it is then assessed, these are not stroke symptoms, these are pinched nerve symptoms, or these are, because stroke symptoms are usually going to be unilateral, not bilateral. And it turned out to be a neuropathy, which makes 100% sense, because if it had been a stroke, it would have been one side. Nonetheless, that's neither here nor there.
It was one side.
Point is that if you say your symptoms, and that's usually said during dispatch,
right.
And then the professional comes on and they do the assessment, and together as a partnership, yes, they will take you to the appropriate. There are times when patients will say, and this goes to an awful lot of logistics. I had my brain surgery done at Providence, and even though I'm right here in front of Howard, my brain surgeon is at Providence.
They go to Providence.
And it has to go through, yes, it does have to then go through on the tape line, through the communications dispatcher, that it is patient's preference to go to Providence, that family and those on scene understand that it's going to be a delay in getting there, but this is the preference. Sometime that's taken into consideration, sometime it's not.
Okay, in other words, if I had called and said I'm blind, I experienced blindness in one eye on the left, and my left leg became numb and swollen, that would be neuropathy, or automatically assumed, in terms of the ability to make a decision?
I mean, I would come out saying, if you called and said that, remember the person that's taking that call is not a paramedic or an EMT.
Right.
So the dispatcher that's taking the call is going to follow the National Emergency Medical Dispatch Guidelines and go down the lines to determine what level of care needs to come to your home. That's what the call does. So I have blindness in my left eye and I have pain in my leg. Based on the card, they're going to send out 2 levels of care, basic and ALS. And from there, when they get on the scene, they're going to determine how you should be transported. Should you be transported at a higher level? And that's only meaning the personnel that will be accompanying you, or the basic level. That's where that comes in. So what you say to the dispatcher determines who comes to your home, but that does not determine where you're going.
Okay, so who comes to my home? In other words, blindness on the left eye, or all of it kind of temporary. Okay, blindness on the left eye, numbness followed by numbness in the left leg would be dispatched. The firehouse closest to me would come, and then they would decide then where they would take me.
The level of care closest to you would be dispatched, and then upon the assessment, the physical assessment would be then determined where you were going to be taken. Correct.
Right. So, if that's the complaint, blindness and numbness on the left leg, as a nurse, what would you think would be the level of, what would be the assessment on that? What would you do in that situation?
Pardon me?
What would you do in that situation? How would you dispatch something like that? To which
I wouldn't be dispatching as a nurse, but what I'm looking at right now is and these again are also available, They're called EMD, Emergency Medical Dispatch Protocols. So under the Emergency Dispatch Protocol, if I looked under, there is no blindness card. There is a stroke-like symptom card. So if I'm looking under the stroke symptoms, first question would be, are you completely alert? Are you breathing normal?
Yeah.
Then if it's, do you think it's a stroke?
Yep.
I would ask you, define it, and then there are certain questions that you would have to answer. And then if indeed this says that, speech, numbness on one side, weakness on one side, paralysis, blindness on one side, loss of balance, coordination, vision problems, onset of headache, boom. They stop right there and say, I'm sending you a paramedic. They hit certain buttons and say, the following units need to go to this home. They then get back on the phone. They don't hang up from you, and then they ask a few more questions. What time did they start? And have you had a stroke before? Now, if the first set of questions you said, well, no speech problems, no numbness on both sides, whatever, they continue to ask more questions. And when they ask some more questions, it moves you to a different level. And that's a different level of units that may be dispatched to your home. So that's the way that person, that call taker, that is not a part of the fire department, they are their own unified, it's Unified Office of Communications, and so they have, they're a separate agency. That's how it's determined whether you're getting fire, ambulance, or police.
Right.
All right. And then when those professionals that agency has dispatched come to your home, then they follow the protocols that I told you are on the website. That's the protocols we operate under.
Okay. And if I had told them, not my arm, but just my leg had become numb, and my eye, my left, both on the left side, and my left eye experienced blindness of a sort, it was a white blotch in the middle and everything else was normal. That would have been, those are the answers to that, the questions, all the different questions that you say they would have for me. I didn't get a lot of questions.
They already dispatched, I have already looked at your record. They dispatched according to that card, and they did dispatch the appropriate levels. So, I've already looked at it, because when you gave me your name last night, I did. I already know that I haven't heard the tape. I will order the tape to listen to the actual call, but based on the documentation, the questions that were asked and the way that you answered, the appropriate level of units were dispatched.
I didn't actually call them. There was Alert 1 that called them.
Well, based on the questions, I just looked at that. I just skimmed it quickly. So
yeah, and I told them
were dispatched, and then that was for the 29th. On the 1st...
that was for the 29th. I don't have a complaint about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was the one on the 29th. Right. On the incident on the 1st, again, based on the way your symptoms were presented, there is nothing that documents, did you make a request to the unit at that time that you did not want to go to UMC?
Absolutely told them, don't take me there. There was no question about it. I told the Alert 1 people, they told me they don't have control where they take me, but they can tell them what I want. When they got here, I told them I do not want to go to UMC. They put me in the car and took me there, as though I had said, take me to the UMC right now. And that's
what I need in writing.
Okay. I do have...
Only because it needs to move through the right channels. This is to ensure... This is not that I'm being difficult. This is really to protect you. I want it in writing so that, because you're telling me that this may have to be shared with another agency, the Office of Unified Communications, on who dispatched. It just is the better way for us to have it documented. And so I'm not being difficult. I just want, because I already know kind of where I'm going to go with it, but I know I need other probably departments. So to help me with the investigation, it's better when I have it as a formal complaint.
Right. Okay. That would be a formal complaint in your.
Pretty much a formal complaint or a formal inquiry.
Inquiry.
Or an inquiry.
Yeah, because I do believe I have a right. I mean, I know in other places, I don't know about D.C. whether they make those assessments based on entitlement to this or that, or whether they make those assessments like other places do. When you don't want to go to a particular hospital, they make you sign something that you didn't want to. You know, that's the only place they can take you. They tell you that in advance, and you sign something saying that you are refusing the service, because maybe you can call somebody and have them bring you, even if it's in the middle of the night and you wouldn't otherwise have called that person. You might call somebody. In my case...
Now, yesterday you did say that you were told you had the right to refuse.
I was told that?
That's what you told me yesterday.
Okay.
That you were told that you had the right to refuse, and that you were not refusing care, that you were just refusing destination.
Mm-hmm. I do believe I have the right to refuse.
Did you, is that, I want to make sure we're clear.
Okay.
You did refuse.
I did refuse.
Nation, but not, so you were given the right, is what I want to make sure.
I refused to go to UMC, and so they got me in the ambulance without telling me that that's where they were taking me. I found out when I got there that that's where they were taking me. And I told him, again, if you had told me you were going to UMC, I would not have come with you. You should have told me. Because if I'm going to UMC told me on the phone, don't come here with those symptoms, go to GW. I called them before I called Alert 1. Okay? They told me, don't come here. We can't help you with that. We don't have what's necessary. Don't come here. So when they came here, I told them, don't take me there.
Do not tell me they said that.
Why not?
Because that's an EMTALA violation. No hospital in the right minds with the legal, and I used to do in-house legal, would ever say that to a patient on the phone. You cannot say that. That's an EMTALA. That's a federal law violation. So,
well, then they federally violated the law.
I don't want to be privy to that, please. I really don't. Because, see, then now I'm going to be bound to report to UMC that someone answered their phone and told you not to come there. And so I really, this is getting, let's stop it here. And so that I have it in writing, because, I mean, now I am bound to contact UMC and find out who told you not to come there. That's an EMTALA violation.
And what kind of violation? What did you call that?
EMTALA. It's a federal act. So, I'm going to cease for your protection.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can put that in writing, get it to me. And I do have enough information based on yesterday's conversation to have already started the clinical review and to ask for, the tapes and all. And then we can go from there.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess my remaining question, which is theoretical, do I have a right? I believe I have a right, but maybe the laws here are different. Do I have a right to refuse treatment, number one, to refuse to be taken to a particular hospital if I know that that's what they're going to do? Like I did. Like I refused it, and then I was taken there anyway. Do they have a right to transport me where I don't want to go?
There are cases when it can happen, yes, indeed.
There are cases when it can happen, but do I have a right to...
I have, without everything in front of me, there are, like I said, people have a right. There are rights and responsibilities of the patient, rights, and then the responsibilities are, and these are guidelines, again, that say, yes, you have a right, but you also have a responsibility to believe that the decision's made for you. So there's a hair. I really don't want to answer that. I would like you to look at the refusal policy. It's online, and I'll wait for the rest of your document in writing.
Okay.
Again, I'm pretty sure you're recording this, so I do need to go on record and say it is not my consent, and therefore anything that is taken from this tape, if it is spliced or changed or twisted, I have not consented to it.
Well, you haven't consented to it, but
okay.
But
Alrighty.
it's not legally.
And we're good.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay, I wouldn't splice it anyway, but that's okay.
Hear that in writing, and so that I can move forward.
Okay.
I'd like to move forward, okay?
Yeah, I wouldn't, what you have told me is the likely case. I would want it in writing, too.
Okay.
It wouldn't be something that could be spliced, because I would want it in writing. So, but I wanted, for my own, so that I don't call you back with the same questions again also. Because I don't, this is very complicated. If you're telling me that there could be a million answers to one question, that's a loaded question.
Exactly. That's how healthcare is.
Healthcare
is not cut and dry. Healthcare is never cut and dry. And you never want your clinician to say, oh, it's always going to be anything. It's never going to be always anything. Well, anyone that is so ignorant to say it's always one or the other should be hit with malpractice. So, yes, healthcare is complicated.
But not a patient, because the patient doesn't know. If it's that complicated, I'm not going to be able to write down everything you say, number one. But I also have to understand it. You understand why I'm doing it. Yeah.
But you've been in healthcare for years.
Who, me?
Everyone's had healthcare. I mean, if you have a doctor, these are just the laws that we're governed by. This is what you expect from us. Mm-hmm. But I'll wait for it in writing.
Yeah, okay. It may take a while. I'm disabled, and I don't feel good. That situation isn't over yet. I've had lots of symptoms after that, and that were stroke-like or could have been paresthesias, but also, like temporary blindness and paralysis and stuff like that. I've had that, and I don't feel well, but I will be putting that together, and I will send it to you as soon as I can. I hope.
Okay.
Well, it won't be this week because tomorrow's Friday, but hopefully next week.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye-bye. That was Miss, the nurse attorney Anita Massengale at Firehouse. It is now, she called me instead of me calling her. I wanted to say my prayers first, but 12:26 p.m. That's what it is now. It's April 11, 2013.